from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased joining me, and I think this is second time I'm hosting someone from Mexico. I have Federico Ramallo. Federico, I'm very pleased that you are with me here today. Why? Because first, I tend to like to speak to founders, serial entrepreneurs, people who are in the middle of what we call it, the AI revolution, and you are a founder in that space. I don't like to steal the show from you. What I do usually is I keep it to my guest to let us more about, yourself, your journey, and what you're currently up to, and then we're gonna have the discussion rolling from there. So the floor is yours.
Great. Mehmet, thank you for having me today. It's an honor and a privilege to be in your show.
My pleasure.
So, a little bit about myself. I was born in Argentina from a Polish Irish family. um, it's an interesting story. I moved to Mexico almost 20 years ago, and I currently live in Guadalajara. I am married to an amazing wife who's also my business partner. I'm a father of a 10-year-old boy. I hold a black belt karate, and I'm coaching on karate as well to my son and other kids.
Nice.
Um, I'm a software engineer and an engineer leader. I've been coding for all my life, and I'm passionate about building high performing engineering teams that deliver real user results. Right. Um, I'm also a host of a podcast called Prevetted Podcast, um, where I talk with people that I admire, people that I find exceptional and interesting, similar to what you're doing in your show, right? I'm also founder of a few companies, which we can talk in a
Sure.
moment, and I'm also authoring 2 books, which we can talk as well.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that, Federico. And thank you again for being here with me today. Kind of a traditional question, right? So, whenever I have someone who founded companies with me, the first question I ask, what was the main problem you've seen that let you build that company? Of course, you are a software engineer, so actually you build products, right? But what was like the exact use cases? And feel free to talk about what you're currently doing with Prevetted AI and with your previous company, Density Labs. I like to hear these stories, Federico.
Yes, I mean, I think that what happens is that I build my company based on trying to solve a problem. Um, so the company became more of a sub consequent of the problem that I was trying to solve. I was asked to build engineering teams, and that's kind of how I started Density Labs, um, which is a boutique engineering service firm. And on Density Labs, we build engineering teams in Mexico for companies in the US. Um, we started that company 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. And it's interesting the outsourced teams um, dynamics. So the problem that I was trying to solve there was first having a reliable team, right?
Hmm.
Then I found another issue that was we were not getting clear requirements from the product owners. So my solution for that was to build a design team that could help the product owners to provide more clear requirements. That way, the amount of interruptions that the development team would have would be reduced, right? Interruptions and dependencies, right? We didn't need to go back and ask the product owners clarification, right? We could go and fly solo, if you like, right? Um, and that allow us to first have more clear requirements on the design from the design team, because now we had mockups and what used to be a dragging meeting of having to go through the requirements document became a very fun meeting where everybody wanted to participate, because we added storytelling into the conversation, right? And instead of having to go through a boring document, what we start doing is we start telling a story, right, with the mock-ups
Nice.
and showing how it worked, right? And that now everybody wanted to go there, even if we're not going to build that feature, right? Because it was fun, um, and that allowed to facilitate a lot of the requirements and the communication with the team. Um, so we did that, and again, there's an interdependency, right, between the design team and the development team, because now the development team could provide more clear, more accurate estimations. And I work with the team to make sure that um, when we say it's done, it is actually done. It's not. It works on my computer, right? Which is usually the response from a junior engineer, right? Um, so I work with that, and then not only we got uh, uh, accurate estimations, we were able to make sure that those features were shippable, right? That they actually work on production, right? Um, which is another layer into this step of delivering features. And in that process, we also build a QA team, right? When you build a QA team, um, you have you can have a QA team that could do manual test and automated test, right? And you can have the development team also writing automated tests, right? So what happens is that if you're writing automated tests, if you're following TDD, you're doubling the effort for everything that you're
Mhm.
building, right? So then they start asking the questions: how much is it worth to do that, right? um, how much is it worth to do manual testing, and how much is it worth to do automated testing, right? And working with the QA team to build a test plan before we were actually building the feature, because we could validate that test plan based on the value to the user, right? And the effort to automate those tests, right? um, Again, I'm trying to simplify 10, 20 years of practice into a single phrase, but um, that realization allow us to work with the engineering team to start thinking more on the QA side, right, from the beginning, right? On quality, the earliest you find a quality issue, the cheaper it is to fix it, right? um, you
Yeah.
know if you see car recalls, right, how much it costs to the companies to get the cars back and fix whatever is the issue, right? Whereas if you fix it earlier in the production line, you save a lot of money. So um, we start doing that, and then we start working on um, how much tasks, how many tests should we do manually, how many tests should we automate, because every time we automate, we free bandwidth from the QA team, right? Because every time we do a release, they have to do the same set of tests, right? um, Again, there are a lot of trade-offs here, but that concept was great because it allowed us to optimize the development team, right? And making sure that what we were building would make sense um, on the based on what the product owners were describing, based on what they talk with the users, right? Um, so I've done that. Um, and one of the things, interesting thing that happens with the outsourced teams or nearshore teams is that there
Mhm.
is an inherent power imbalance, right? Um, so as a leader of the team and working with the managers that are our clients, I work towards leveraging that playfield as much as possible, right? Um, and the other thing that I've seen happening on nearshore team is that we are inherently shielded from the internal politics of the company, so we can focus on the work, right? Um, so if we have parity in understanding the context, right, and we have the trust, the impact that the team can provide is way bigger, right? So we focus on impact and ownership, right? And when we do that, and I push the envelope of the traditional role of the outsourced team, right? Um, so we take more ownership. We become indistinguishable than a full time employee, right? Um, that has been my secret sauce, if you like, of our success in Density Labs, right? Um, and then the other uh, core realization that I've seen is I've seen this happening on LATAM teams because that's where my experience comes from.
Mhm.
But I've seen happening on teams on other countries as well, where they they are they tend to overpromise. And the way that I explain this is they overpromise out of love, right? Because they want to please, right? They want to say yes, right? And in particular in Latin America, what happens is if somebody invites you to a party, you say yes, right? Because if you say no, that's socially unacceptable because you're
Uh-huh.
hurting somebody else's feeling, right? So even if you're not planning to go, you are you should say yes, right? Which causes an issue with the concept of RSVP in this type of meetings kind of breaks apart, right? Doesn't exist. Um, so I work with my team to normalize, honest communication, right? Don't overpromise. Let's promise what we can do. Let's under promise and over deliver, right? Because I know that that's the expectation that the manager is going to have, right? Um, and it's just a cultural difference, but these nuances make or break outsourced teams, right? Um, and then the other part that I work hard with the teams is deliver the bad news as early as possible, right? Rather than
Mhm.
holding them, right? Because I've seen how holding them because of fear, because of I don't want to get scolded. I'm trying to fix it, but before I say anything, um, that also hurts the trust that we have with the managers, right? So delivering the bad news and then laying out the plan that we're doing to fix that issue, right? That way we provide the visibility, the plan, the north. This is where we're going, and that again has been a differentiation of how I run these teams, right? And the managers that work with us on the labs appreciate it, right?
So, Federico, how this evolved into pre-vetted AI? Like, how was the transition to there?
Oh yeah, so in that process of building these teams, I had to deal with recruiting and screening technical people, right? So first, I started with people that I know people that I can trust, people that I can vouch for, right? People that have been my friends or colleagues. But you have so many friends, right? So eventually, I had to build a recruiting and screening process, right? I am very detail oriented and very um, anal about quality. So I work towards building and probably overbuild screening process. So my first goal was to have zero false positives, and then I work towards timing, right? So first quality, then timing. So if I need to take a little bit longer to find candidates, I'd rather do that, right? So we build this screening process with humans. Um, so we were able to screen consistently the best 2% of software engineers, um, and we maintain a 98% success rate over the last 6 years, right? So every candidate that we present to the managers, to our clients, they has been successful in the teams, right? And that means we set the right expectations. We work towards if there are, sometimes we find candidates that lack a skill or lack some experience, so we're honest about that, and we build a plan to improve um, that. That means it's a great opportunity for the candidate. It's a great opportunity for the manager because we offer a discounted rate during that transition process, and we give the opportunity for the candidate to prove themselves. They appreciate that, um, and again, it's about building trust, right? So we build that process. It's been successful and proven, but the issue is we're spending 250 hours for every candidate that we present, right? So again, it's overbuilt, but with this idea of zero false positives, right? Um, so we do a few things. One is we for every candidate that goes through our process, we give them feedback on how to improve. I think that's something humane in this screening process. I've seen screening process and recruiting processes that are more transactional. I'm looking for that guy. You're not there. Goodbye, and then they ghost candidates. So we took the commitment not to do that and to give feedback as much as possible, as much accurate as possible. And the feedback usually is read this book, uh, uh, follow this blog post, things like that are customized for that each candidate, and apply again in a year. We want to see how much you progress, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, some candidates follow that, some candidates don't, but at least on our side, we try to give them that guidance, right? Um, so in that situation of 250 hours per candidate, um, we productized our screening process. Um, so that way, hiring managers can go to prevetted.ai, and with 3 clicks, they can see our pre-vetted talent pool. Our best 2% is available there for them to interview and hire. Um, so we did that. That's the first step of pre-vetted AI. Um, and we're working on uh, building an AI agent that can run the screening interviews. Right now,
Nice.
having said that, I don't trust the AI agent yet. Right. So,
Why?
well, there are a few factors. First is the quality of the screening is as good as our humans, right? And then the second one is are the really good candidates willing to be interviewed by an AI agent, right? I know that the um, average, the mediocre candidates are going to, but again, we're aiming for the best 2%. So are they willing? that's a hypothesis that we're trying to validate, right? So
Interesting.
um, my thinking is, yes, I want to use the AI agent to run the screening, but I also want to have a human in the loop for screening, um, but supported with a platform, so we can use the agent in a more passive role, just listening and scoring, right? Or we can use the AI agent in a more active role, just running the interviews, right? Um, Now, the other part for that is once we have that built for based on our screening process, we can open up the customization for the hiring manager. So the idea is that the hiring managers will be able to go and define the screening steps that they want, and then we can execute with agents or humans, depending on what the hiring manager prefer, right? And then we can provide a standardized report on all the candidates that went through, right? So we're our first iteration is we hold the truth, if you like. It's our process, it's our it, it, it's our screening. um, with the agent, we're delegating on the agent a little bit, but again, I don't want to lower the quality, so I'm doing baby steps. Uh, and then after that, we're going to allow hiring managers to run their own processes, right? Which could provide different results. The output could vary depending on the quality of the screening that the hiring manager set up, right? So we're going to provide templates based on our learnings, what worked for us, so they can customize it to their specific needs.
Sure. Federico, out of curiosity, what of you told me and you mentioned you work with companies in the US. What I'm interested in, what type of companies are we talking here about? Startups, about enterprises? And the other thing is it true? Of course, I know the answer, but as an expert, is it true like now it's not like before, especially before COVID, before 2020, telling someone, hey, like I'm gonna get you some especially technical resource remote? No, 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 no. I don't want to do this. I want someone sitting with me in the office. So, two things. Uh, who are usually the customer profiles that you serve with the talents? And second, how have you seen the remote culture also facilitating that now it's not only with these kinds of companies, it can be any company. So I want to hear your opinion and your view on that.
Yeah, so we work with startups, Series A and above, and we also work with public companies. So we have enterprise and startups
Nice.
in our client pool. Um, they have different needs, so the boutique and the personalization of the service uh, has a big role on what they need. Um, One of the issues that I've seen with startups, in particularly young startups, is that they expect the developers to be um, they open the expectation of the developer so much, right? So they expect the developer to be a little bit of product owner, a little bit of design, a little bit of QA, a little bit of DevOps, right? Which some developers can do, uh, but I usually when we work with startups, I talk about um, setting the right expectations for the developers, um, because it's not the same. And kind of going to what you're talking about, the expectation of having somebody physically in the same location. Um, for a startup that is all over the place, no formal process set up, trying to build something fast, usually having a local developer is better because they can just tap their shoulders, sit down together. They can do this more chaotic, creative process, if you like, right? Um, but when you have a remote developer, then having a more formal process, having more clear requirements, having a better defined role, a narrower role for the developer, it's better because remote, whether it's in the US or outside the US, um, there are communication issues that could affect the outcome of the developer. So um, unless you have a remote first organization, right, where that it doesn't become a big issue, right? Um, but I've seen bad practices in that sense where the developers are working on odd hours, trying to get to the next demo, right? Which again, is startup life. I understand, right?
Right.
But one of the differentiations that I've seen in this more of a cultural difference between the US and Latin America is Latin America values more family time. Having a work-life balance is much more important for them, right? So having a Latam developer in a startup becomes an issue between time balance, a work-life balance, and communication, right?
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I heard it even here on my show, that CTOs usually they worry about it, is long-term retention, especially with remote teams. Uh, how do you make sure that the talents that they are pre-vetted for these companies uh, are really ones who would be able to build the loyalty and the trust, especially for an organization that they might be doing this for the first time. They are worrying, okay, maybe when we will hire them for 6 months, then they will find something else, they will leave us. So, how do you manage this, Federico, or how do you advise actually the talents to do so? Because at the end of the day, if you recommend someone to a company and they do this, it's gonna hurt you also as well, right? So you need to make sure that the talents that you are presenting to these companies, they're gonna be thinking long term. So how do you manage this?
Our average tenure is 6 years, and
Wow.
we've been in building for we have been in business for 10. So yes, it's very high. Um, it exceeds the average tenure in Silicon Valley, for instance. Um, it's it's a lot of work to have that high level of retention, um, but um, we work a lot on ownership. We work a lot on building a career path. We try to um, either read between the lines um, or ask the CTO or the manager what are their future needs, um, so that way our team can work as part of the career path on learning that new technology or a new framework or whatever is it's going to be on the roadmap. Sometimes they don't know, so we build a career path based on our assumptions, what are things we see are they are going to need in the future. um, and that sense of ownership and growth, it's the key to keep the team happy, right? And then on the other hand, we we try to we work towards a no hand holding position, right? We don't want a developer that you need to kind of, you know, spoon fed, right? You want somebody that
Of
can
course.
get in and work, right? So we work towards setting that, and we do the same thing with the career path. Again, we try to reduce the bandwidth that the CTO requires to manage the team, because we proactively work towards that, and also um, provide them visibility of what we're doing, right? Now, on the other hand, uh, we usually have a backfill ready. So in 24 hours, 48 hours, you can have another candidate working in case, in the worst case scenario, right? So we plan for the best, plans for the worst, work to the best, right? Um, yeah, and then the other thing that we do is manage expectations, understanding what are the expectations of the manager, so that way we make sure that the developer or the QA or the designer can fulfill um, those expectations, right? And if they don't, then I, I mean, I believe that my goal is to be able to be the first one that raise a flag and say, "Hey, we have this issue, and not only we have this issue, but also this is the action plan that we have in order to fix that issue situation." So rather than coming with problems, I come with situations and an action plan, right? And last, I can give you um,
Sure.
an example of one thing we did is we built a trainee program. Um, Usually we start with senior people that join the team, and then we work towards trainees, right? um, so what we do with the trainees is we train them ourselves on our dime, to make sure that we know them. We check values, we check behavior, we check because you can interview them, but usually the knowledge they have is very limited. So I focus more on behavior and ethics and integrity, right? Because I can teach the technical stuff. I can teach to any, again, people that have in screen. So good enough candidates, right? Um, so I want to do the other part of the human profile, right? So we train them. Then uh, 50% of that uh, training team are going to be elected to the best 50% is going to be elected to participate on the team. Um, the hiring managers usually wants to participate in that process, but our intention is everybody that goes through our screening process and everybody that goes through this initial um, training,
Screening.
uh, everybody has to badge for them. So basically, we say this is the people that we feel are best. So they work really hard to become the best, half, right? The half that are going to be selected, and it's a learning opportunity for them. We pay them to do that, so that way they can have a focus on the training. So it's a learning opportunity, it's a income opportunity for the candidates. It's a great way for us to know them. Then after that, we work towards a 3-year plan with a sub commitment with the manager. If a candidate is not performing, then it is not performing. So in those 3 years, we had 100% retention rate, right? On both sides. So it's the manager is happy with the work, the uh, the trainees are happy working on the project, right? Um, and then we planned um, raises, salary increases throughout those 3 years, so that way they don't have this uncertainty of, am I going to get a raise or not, right? But also we work with the manager on setting expectations for every stage, again with a soft commitment. If the person is not doing is not delivering the expectation, then we can move a little bit the dates, but the intention is to have a plan that allows that allows to have a high retention rate. And then after those 3 years, and we've done this process multiple times, right, with 100% retention rate. After those 3 years, then they usually stay on the project. We had 100% hiring after the 3 years, which basically means they continue working on the project, right? Because they're performing, and we've seen 6 years of tenure, right? And the reason for that is because they appreciate the opportunity and the growth. They have growth throughout those 6 years, right? That is associated with new responsibilities that they take, right? And the managers appreciate the work that each of these people are doing because they're providing real value to the team.
Cool. Now, you mentioned at the introduction about the book or two books.
Yes.
Tell
Yes.
me more.
Yeah. So I'm writing two books. One, I'm the co-author of Open the Valve, the new path to creative play. Um, I'm co-authoring the Spanish version, uh,
Okay.
which it's Abre la válvula, el nuevo camino hacia el juego creativo. Uh, so this book is about creativity, right? And the it's an interesting journey. It's a non-linear, interesting journey about how to become creative and how to embrace creativity, right? So it's inspirational, and I'm working on the Spanish version, and it's a back and forth. So I've been adding contributions on the English as well. So it's a very interesting dynamic, right? And my co-author John Klimshin, he's an amazing author, an amazing guy, and he invited me to participate in this project. And that the other book that I'm writing is about leveraging outsourced teams successfully, which the practices that I've been doing for the last 10, 20 years, and how managers can advance their careers by leveraging these outsourced teams, right?
Nice. What about the podcast?
So the podcast, I talk a little bit about the book about creativity, and the podcast became first as a way for me to connect with people in a much more meaningful way, like this conversation we're having. But then I realized that I am becoming the creative conduit for my guests, so they can share their stories. They can brighten up. You can see when they start talking, and you probably experience this as well when you get into
A
the
lot.
flow of the conversation, and it's hard to stop it because everybody's on the flow, and it's such an amazing experience, right? So I found that there is a connection between the book about creativity and my work on the podcast.
I can relate to that. So, what's the profile usually of the people you host now on the podcast, Federico? I
So
mean, are they
right.
CTOs? Are they founders? Like, what kind of guests you have?
So I had very interesting guests. Everybody has an interesting story.
Of course.
So I had um, book authors. I had individual contributors, product owners. We talk about product. I've been doing a series of episodes about that. Um, I had CEOs. I have engineers, former NASA engineers, where we talk about uh, uh, putting radio telescopes on the dark side of the moon, right? Um,
Nice.
it's very technical, but it's a very interesting conversation, similar to the Arecibo telescope that collapsed a few years ago, where there was a James Bond scene there, right, where Jaws die, right? uh, Spoiler alert. it's a it's a movie from the 80s, I think, but anyway, we I think Pierce Brosnan is the 007. So anyway, we talk about life sometimes. I had guests that for me it becomes a way to kind of embrace life, because I had guests that uh, their kids showed up, so uh, you know instead of kind of um, I embrace interruption in a way, right? Because I believe that we are one, right? As family, businessmen, developers. We are one, and everything is interconnected. So I think is important to embrace this idea of that you know we're also having a family. We also have our kids are part of our life. Our dogs are part of our lives, or cats, whatever it is, right? So I try to embrace that, right? So yeah, different people talking about different things. I had CEOs as well. So I think I already mentioned that. Um, and one of the things that we've been talking a lot with with my guest is about uh, this idea of uh, running business, for profit business, with a social component.
Mm.
Um, we kind of gravitated towards that. Again, I know that there is a connection, but I don't know the causality, right?
Yeah,
Because I have that idea, and I found that a lot of the guests that participate in my podcast bring those ideas as well. So maybe it's a serendipity thing where we kind of connect for that. Um, yes, and for me, the podcast becomes a way to do simple acts of kindness, to uh, provide the platform to the guest to share their story, um, to help them be more creative, and bright through the episode, and it's amazing. Yeah.
it's I would say it's very similar to this podcast. How long have you been doing this, Federico? Like how long have you been doing the podcast?
So I've been doing the podcast since 2023. I
Oh,
started.
same time I started.
Oh, really? Amazing.
Yes. Yeah. The reason I ask you why, because almost, all what you mentioned, of course, maybe we didn't have the same guest. Like, funny enough, maybe, I have you now, probably you will have someone like me later. But exactly the same concept. I had CEOs, CTOs, CMOs. I had people who talks about everything, technology and non-technology, but we try to relate it to our daily life, and technology is part of our daily life, so I like this way of doing it, this way. And I'm fascinated only by the power of doing this. As you mentioned, is about creating impact, and it becomes by itself your launch pad, right? So you figure out after doing it for a long time, oh my god, like probably I didn't know I'm doing this, but people are benefiting out of a content that I'm creating, which is, for me, it's fascinating. I can't describe it in a proper way. So I'm happy, like, also you found a passion for you also, other, of course, what you're doing very well with your companies. Now, speaking back to that, Federico, now things are changing fast. AI, you mentioned, you touched on it a little bit. How are you seeing the future of this business from your perspective? Because and the reason I'm asking you, people are asking, are saying, yeah, AI will write code, AI will do this, AI will do that. From your perspective, how do you see things going within your business when it comes to providing pre-vetted teams?
So there are a few things to talk about here. It's
Sure.
uh, we can talk about AI in the in the terms of screening people. Um, there is this concept of, if the employer is using AI, then as a candidate, I can use AI. Um, I draw the line on um, honesty and integrity. So I've seen people using AI to cheat, uh, candidates using AI to cheat and present themselves as something that they're not. So covert use of AI, I think that's a big no-no from my point of view, right? Because it is using to be is deceiving, right? Now, on the other hand, being able to talk honestly about how a candidate is leveraging AI to uh, provide answers, to do work. I think that's something healthy, but it should be out in the open and over the table, right? Um, Now, I also see the other point of view of candidates saying, well, we get automatic rejections, and that's it. So I understand the frustration of uh, people, candidates feeling that AI is being used to provide a more personalized rejection letter, right? Uh, and not talking to humans, right? So I also see that. That's why on I mentioned about um, maybe our AI agents doing screening would not apply for everybody, um, and we will need a human to step up into the conversation. That's why I do the feedback, because I believe that providing a generic rejection letter does not provide value for the candidate. Um, and if we can leverage AI to hyper personalize that feedback, the better, right? But for the key differentiation for me is follow up, right? Are you willing to come back in a year, 6 months after you read these 2 or 3 books, and now you know more, or not, right? Most candidates don't follow up, right? And that's a missed opportunity that they have, which is not AI; it's on the human side, right? Um, Okay, so I talk a little bit about that. Um, is AI going to replace engineers, or can companies replace engineering teams with AI? I believe not. There's a lot of hype on that. It sounds great for non-technical people. On the business side, sounds great, but then when you start implementing things, AI doesn't have this level of abstractions that humans have. So I believe that um, engineers using AI, or knowing how to leverage AI, are going to replace engineers that don't. Right. So that's I think that's going to happen. And then for particularly for companies that are legacy, that have enterprise, have big uh, code bases, the
Yeah,
use of AI, replacing engineers with AI becomes much more dangerous, because there's so many moving parts that and trade-off that you need to consider when you're building this type of software, that is not feasible, right? Um, for prototyping, for product owners using AI to convey their ideas, for non-technical people using AI to build something that otherwise they couldn't. I think that's a great use for the tool. I'm a Ruby on Rails. I love Ruby on Rails, but if I have to, and I learned Bash because it's a hard language, and I love it because of the challenge. But if I have to write something in Python, now I can use AI to help me write a script in Python,
right.
right? So now, as a software engineer, I don't need to know all the languages. I have more tools available for me, so I can write in Ruby, give it to an LLM, translate that into Python, or kind of stumble around and build something that needs to be done without having to learn the whole language, right? So there are benefits for LLM on that side, um, but yeah, I don't think it's going to replace humans yet.
Yet, yeah, exactly. Yet, uh, as we are almost, coming to the end of this conversation, which is fantastic, by the way, Federico. One question that actually I wanted to ask before, but now I have felt it's the right time to ask you. You've done and you've built this fantastic business, and you've been almost 10 years now, and your sweet spot is between Latin America and the US, right? Now,
Yes.
if someone sitting and listening to us, I don't know, between two geographies which might be on the same time zone, because I know like Latam and US almost same time zone. Of course, you have. I don't think even the language is a problem, but I mean at least they are working on the same time zone. If someone now, I don't know, maybe sitting in Vietnam and thinking to provide this to, I don't know, maybe a geography which is time zone perspective, if they want to do it the right way, what are like, you'd say, two or three things you advise people to build this in the right way? Unless you tell me, Mehmet, no, I will not share because I'm planning to expand and make this business global. So what you say?
Well, I mean, the idea of pre-vetted was to expand globally, which now we can do. And but Density Lab has been mostly focused on Mexico. Um, so yes, there is that intention. So if there's any candidate that want to apply on Prevetted AI from Vietnam, they could. Um,
Cool.
now, um, one of the issues that I see with working in a different time zone is, um, think of the experience as a manager. I give you, I'm the manager. I give you the requirements. Please build this. I go to sleep. The next morning, I see I see the results, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
what happens if that person, that developer, work in the wrong direction? You learn that, as a manager, you learn that the next day, right? So there is no feedback loop. Uh, the feedback loop is 8 hours or one day, right? Whereas if you're in the same time zone, you can have feedback loops every hour, or as frequently as you need, because you're working on the same time zone, right? So that's a big benefit. So you can find a different rates, and you can say, well, it's going to be cheaper in Vietnam, but if I have the person working in the wrong direction for 8 hours, then the higher rate becomes much more appealing, right? So there's that situation. Um, then I think that some of the cultural, um, differences
Absolutely.
that I mentioned, uh, there are nuances in
Here you go.
Pakistan, Vietnam. There are nuances. So I don't know those countries well enough, but I would suggest, if somebody wants to do that, they should go to the US, work for a while there, understand the culture, right, and then come back and be able to become this cultural bridge, right, and set the right expectation on both sides, right. Now, the time zone difference could be solved by having the people working at night, uh, but I don't know how much they can sustain that in long term, right? Um, and
Especially back to your point of the life work
right,
balance, right?
right. I believe that in Vietnam and other countries, they're going to appreciate work-life balance more than in the US. So probably that's going to be an issue. Um, and one of the things that I've done, and one of the reasons I chose Mexico, is, we can be in from Guadalajara to San Jose in 3.8 hours,
Yeah.
right? So we could go, and we've done this before COVID. We would go 4 or 5 times a year, just work locally and integrate with the people, right? So instead of being the product owner, that it's an avatar on a screen, is the product owner that, she beat us on mini golf, right? A few weeks
Nice.
ago, right? So that personal relationship solves, or facilitates the communication much more, right? So that that benefit, we can do it from Mexico. When I was working from Argentina, I had 17 hours flight to the US, right? So it wasn't as easy for me to do, right? So if you are in Vietnam, for instance, you have a 20 plus hour flight, right? Plus all the time zone shift that adds, um, uh, jet lag, right?
Of course.
So uh, you have that challenge. And then the last one that, I found that benefit from Mexico, is, we had clients shipping us, um, test devices,
Uh-huh.
and the shipping cost was $20,
Of
fifty
course.
bucks. You know,
Of course.
um,
Yeah. Very affordable.
yeah. And to that point, I actually drove. I've done this like 10 times, and I love it. It's a little bit more expensive to travel, but I drove from Guadalajara to San Jose to San Francisco 10 times already. And I actually, instead of shipping the devices, I would bring them with me to the office, right? Because I drove there, so I could put them in my trunk and drive back. That's something you cannot do with any other countries, right?
True.
And if you ship it to Vietnam, it's going to cost thousands of dollars, right? And the risk that that device could get lost in the process, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and this is your sweet spot, Federico. And I appreciate what you do, and all, building this business. Just being 10 years doing the same thing, as they say in France, chapeau bas. Like, congratulations on this, because really, uh, especially your business. And I speak with all. By the way, of even on the show, I spoke with a lot of people who are like in similar domains, not doing what you do, but similar, like recruitment, offshore, building augmented teams and all this. But I mean, this kind of business needs patience, uh, because you need to understand the other side. Finally,
Right.
question, Federico, for you: where people can get in touch, where they can find about you and about Prevetted AI.
Yeah, so they can find me on densitylabs.io, um, prevetted.ai, that's the pre-vetted platform,
Sure.
and prevetted.ai/podcast. That's where we're hosting the podcast, and they can see our episodes there.
Great. Every single link, and you know this because you are a host, so every single link that Federico just mentioned, it will be available on in the show notes. So if you're listening on this on your favorite podcasting app, you will find it there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will find it in the description. Federico, I can't thank you enough. Really, I appreciate the time. It's a nice experience for me to learn about this uh, business and this niche that you found and you succeeded in, of getting teams for US company from Latin America. It's a big impact. I can feel this, because also like it's getting the guys who are like talented in Latin America to also know how things are done in the US. So this is a big impact. What you are doing with the podcast, the two books which are coming, I think, very soon. So congratulations also on that. And this is how I end my episodes. This is for the audience. If you just discovered us by luck, thank you for passing by. If you liked what you heard, what you saw, I really appreciate if you can give me a favor and subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. Like Federico is doing, we're trying to do an impact. We're trying to reach as much as people as possible. We're trying to touch people's lives, because maybe Federico said something today which might spark something in you. Maybe you will find an opportunity. Maybe you will connect with Federico, and he will be able to help you in some way, or maybe you will be able to help Federico in some way. It happened on this podcast before. That's why I'm saying share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who already do this and send me their feedback, they send me their questions, they send me their comments. All comments, whether positive or negative, are appreciated. I read all of them, really, guys. So keep them coming. And finally, thank you for making the podcast this year. I know you get bored of me repeating this again and again. Staying in the top 200 Apple Podcast charts across multiple countries. So of course we keep changing. This time for Mexico, let's say, Federico, because of you, I'm hoping like I get some, a top 200 chart in Mexico. I did it in Canada. I did it in Argentina. I did it in Bolivia. I did it in a couple of Latam countries. So maybe this time for Mexico. And of course, I'm waiting my US friends as well. I didn't enter your top 200 podcast chart, but I'm hoping I will do it soon. And finally, uh, in September last month, From Nowhere to Next was out. This is my book, which is, it's not only about me, it's about all the thoughts that we discussed on the podcast in the past 3 years. So you can grab it from Amazon. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.